Hello students, we will complete the remaining part of our syllabus, that is clutches. Now in this video lecture we will try to complete the importance of clutches, necessity of clutches, what are the requirement of clutches, working principle of clutch, different types of clutches, that is classification of clutches, and then we will go for different clutches which are included in your syllabus, that is construction details and how they works. And then we will solve some problems related to clutch. All of you know that clutch is a device used in transmission system of a vehicle to transmit the rotary motion of one shaft when desired to second shaft of which axes are coincident with that of first. Thus, the clutch is located between the engine and the transmission system. When the clutch is engaged, power, that is torque, transmits from the engine to the driving wheels through the transmission system and the vehicle moves. When the clutch is disengaged, the power is not transmitted to the driving wheel and the vehicle stops while the engine is still running. In a vehicle, clutch is always in an engaged position. The clutch is disengaged during the gear shifting while stopping the vehicle or during braking and when idling the engine. It should be disengaged by operating the clutch pedal. When clutch operated properly, it prevents sudden jerk motion of the vehicle and thus avoid putting under strain of remaining parts of the power transmission. Requirement of clutch. It should be able to transmit, this clutch should be able to transmit maximum torque of the engine. It should be engaged gradually to avoid sudden jerk. The clutch also should be able to dissipate large amount of heat. Generally this heat is generated during clutch operation by friction. It should be dynamically balanced for high-speed engines. It should have suitable mechanism for damp the vibration and reduce noise during the power transmission. Size of the clutch should be small and occupies less space, and it should be easy to operate so that it can operate by a small effort of driver, and it should be lighter in weight. So these are the requirement of good clutch. Now let us see the working principle of clutch. Working principle of clutch. Clutch is a mechanism used to transmit the rotating motion of one shaft to another shaft when desired whenever desired, and the axes of both the shaft are coincident. So the function of clutch, we understand that clutch is used to transmit engagement and disengagement of the gear when the vehicle is stationary and the engine is running. Also, another function of the clutch is to transmit the engine power to the road wheels smoothly without shocks to transmission system while setting the vehicle in motion. Also, the clutch is used to permit the engaging the gear when the vehicle is in motion without damping the gear wheels. So these are the different functions of the clutch. Now let us see the classification of clutch. Generally, the clutch are broadly classified into two groups. One is positive clutch and second one is gradually engaged clutch. Positive clutches, example of positive clutch is dog clutch or spline clutch, where continuous engagement is there, sudden engagement of in between two friction surfaces takes place. In case of gradual engagement clutch, gradual engagement of friction surfaces takes place, and gradually engaged clutches are classified into different groups, different types, that is electromagnetic clutch, friction clutch, vacuum operated clutch, hydraulic clutch, fluid clutch. Now in your syllabus these friction clutches are included. So friction clutches are classified into mainly four groups. One is cone clutch, second one is disc or plate clutch, centrifugal clutch, and diaphragm clutch. Disc and plate clutch, depending upon number of disc or plates, you can classify once again into two groups, that is single plate clutch and multi plate clutch. So these are the classification of clutches. Now before going to study the working of different types of clutches, you must understand while calculating the power transmission of clutch or power loss during the in the bearing, generally two theories are adopted. These theories, wear theories, are uniform pressure theory, and second one is uniform wear theory. Now, uniform pressure theory generally it is used, or it is very more relevant when surfaces are new, when clutch plates are new, bearings are new. In that case, you have to use this uniform pressure theory. In this theory, we have to assume that intensity of pressure assumed to be uniform or entire surface. The condition is more relevant when bearings are new or surfaces are new. So as per the assumption, for uniform pressure theory, we use the relation intensity of pressure, which is nothing but the axial force divided by the cross-sectional area. This intensity of pressure is constant, P is constant, that is uniform pressure theory equation. Another theory is uniform wear theory. In uniform wear theory is more relevant when surfaces are old, or when we put surfaces, there is typo mistake. So when the surfaces are old, we use this uniform wear theory, and in this case pressure is not constant but wear is constant, and the wear of the surface is depends on the pressure intensity and rubbing velocity. Wear is also not constant at several areas. Wear is different at different areas, so wear depends upon the pressure intensity and rubbing velocity. So in this case, rubbing velocity, it depends upon the radius of rotation. So you can say that wear, in wear theory, we have to use the equation intensity of pressure into radius of rotation, PR is constant. So these are two theories you remember, that is uniform pressure theory where P is constant, intensity of pressure is constant, and uniform wear theory where PR, product of intensity of pressure and radius of rotation, is constant. Uniform pressure theory you have to use when the clutch plates are new, bearings are new, and uniform wear theory you have to use when clutch plates are become old after some time of work. You can use this wear theory. Now let us see different types of clutches in your syllabus. The single plate clutch is included. So this is the diagram of single plate clutch. This single plate clutch is shown in figure. Main components of this single plate clutch is flywheel, pressure plate, clutch plate with friction lining or surfaces called as friction plate, clutch paddle, thrust and ball bearings, and clutch springs. It has only one clutch plate. In single plate clutch, only one clutch plate is there mounted on the hub, which is spline internally and free to slide over the clutch plate. Flywheel is fastened to the crankshaft and rotate with it. The pressure plate is fixed to the flywheel. Pressure plate is fixed to the flywheel. This is flywheel. Pressure plate is fixed to the flywheel through the clutch springs by means of bolts. With the help of bolting arrangement, this pressure plate is fixed to the flywheel. The springs are arranged circumferentially to provide the axial force on a pressure plate to keep the clutch always in engaged position as shown in figure. So with the help of the springs, pressure is applied on the pressure plate so that friction plate will always remain in contact with the pressure plate. The friction plate holds between the flywheel and the pressure plate, having friction faces on both sides to provide two annular friction surfaces for power transmission. When clutch paddle is pressed, this clutch paddle when it is pressed, the pressure plate is moved towards the right, towards this right side against the spring force by compressing the springs. These springs are compressed and pressure in this pressure plate is moves towards the right, and this is achieved by means of suitable linkage. This type of linkage is used. With the help of this one is achieved. And the thrust bearing, here you have the thrust bearing, here the thrust bearing is there. So with the help of this thrust bearing and this linkage, pressure plate moves towards this side and disengagement of the clutch takes place. Due to this movement, the pressure plate, friction plate is released and the clutch is disengaged. When the paddle is released, the pressure plate moves to the left When pedal is released, pressure plate moves to the left, spring force is applied. When the pedal is released, the pressure plate moves to the left due to clutch spring force which are engaged circumferentially, and thus clutch again engaged. So engagement of the clutch will take place. Advantages of the single plate clutch is gear changing is easier than cone clutch because pedal movement is less. It is more reliable because it does not suffer from disadvantages of binding of cone. Disadvantage of this single plate clutch is the spring to be more stiff, hence greater force required by the driver or disengaged. Generally, applications of the single plate clutch is used for four-wheelers like trucks, jeeps, Fiats, Ashok Leyland, Tata Sierra like type of vehicles. Now in case of multi-plate clutch, instead of single plate, number of plates are used. So it is a modification of single plate type of clutch where there increase the number of frictional plates, friction surfaces and clutch plate. Due to this friction surfaces increasing, the torque transmission capacity of the clutch increases and size remaining fixed. Alternatively, the size of the clutch is reduced for the same power transmission as single plate clutch. The figure is shown in figure of the multi-plate clutch is shown in figure, as shown here. So these are the inside disc, these are the outside disc, this is the spring, this is the key. With the help of this key, total assembly is connected to the shaft. This is the driven shaft, this is the driving shaft. So driver shaft and driven shaft is connected with the help of this multi-plate clutch. Now this one also consists of flywheel, pressure plate, spigot end with clutch springs, spigot end which with the clutch springs, thrust bearing and clutch paddle, and two sets of friction plates. One set of friction plate slides in a longitudinal groove of flywheel and other one slides in a spline on a pressure plate hub. Here also when the clutch paddle is pressed, the axial pressure acts on the pressure plate to move right from right and compress the clutch springs at the spigot end. The pressure on the friction plate released and it disengaged. Applications of this multi-plate clutch is this type of clutch is used in heavy transport vehicles and racing cars where high torque transmission is required, transmitted is required. This clutch is also used in scooters and motorcycles as space available is very limited. Now next type of clutch is cone clutch. So in this case, the cone clutch consists of friction surface in the shape of cone. The engine shaft consists of the female cone and the male cone is mounted on a clutch shaft which is spline and male cone free to slide over a clutch shaft. The male cone is provided with the friction surfaces. When male cone are brought in contact with the female cone, the clutch is engaged due to force of spring. When the clutch paddle is pressed, male cone slides towards the right against the spring force by compressing the springs and the clutch is disengaged. The cone clutch is practically absolute due to some disadvantages. In the next video lecture, we will study the diaphragm clutch and centrifugal clutch.